We are back with more videos, deck profiles, and series, especially series. Welcome to our channel. We are Team Crushing the Meta, and you can call me D-Boy. I'm here for you guys with the deck profile. This would be on Kagero Overlords. With the new support of GB7, this deck cut pretty good, and there are some different combos that you could do, but most importantly, you could put way more pressure on your opponent. But before I do the deck profile, I would like to thank you all for all the love and the support, and also for some of the people that have already contacted us and asked about, well, how do we start the game without spending too much money? Which deck or which clan should we be choosing? Choose. Also, if we want to start a new clan or a new deck, but we don't want to give too much money, but still experience how good the clan is, which deck or which choices we should go into. This is why we made a new series which is called Cheap Ass Decks. It's all about the budget decks that you could play, but still very good tournament decks. The reason why those decks are not as good as this deck is because some cards in this deck are a bit more expensive, and because you have more options, but it doesn't mean that that deck is less effective in a tournament than this deck. So, if you want to, if you are interested and you want to see that series, then I will put, or you could just go into our channel, which I will definitely put a link in the uh, description section below. But also, you could go into our Facebook page, and there it's pretty easy to find it. It's the previous video, so yeah, it's very easy to find. So, Overlords, GB7, some new cards, new support. How or what did or how good of an impact could Kagero do in the format? Well, I think if it's played right, then it could be, or it could do a very good, huge impact on the format. Well, let's just start with deck profile. I will not be explaining most of the cards, but if you want the explanation, then you should go and watch our previous Overlord deck profile. I'll definitely put another link in the comment and the description section below for you guys. Your main grade 3 in this deck is the Legends. I do only play 3 copies of him because I play 3 copies of the Cross, and also still playing 3 copies of the End. The reason why I play those six, still play those six, is because remember this is still a control deck. So playing the Legends is this deck more aggressively, but it is not as good of a control deck as while playing the Cross. So it depends on your opponent which ones you would ride. You could also first go for the Legend and then go for a Cross when you want to Legion. So you have the options. Because you also search your grade 3s pretty easy using Connor skill. You could just go into any grade 3 that you want to go into. So that's why I play those 9, because I would like to keep my options to play or to go into any grade 3 in that game. Next, for the grade 2 lineup, I'm playing 4 copies of Nahalem. The reason why you play 4 Nahalems is because this is the best grade 3 or the grade 2 that Kagero have, in my opinion, especially while playing Overlords. This card is really good. Just put so much power on him, and then if you get a critical trigger while your drive checks, just also put it on him. And from there, your opponent would have to guard him like crazy. You would have to keep a perfect guard in their hand to guard that attack. Playing 2 10k vanillas, 2 Berserk Lords, and then 2 Burning Horn Dragon. The reason why you play the 10k vanilla is because you don't want to get rushed, and also while having him as your rear guard, it's pretty hard for your opponent to attack him. Um, at the same time, you do play 2 copies of Burnout because you do want to retire something in the early game, like a starter or anything that your opponent could get advantage of. And the Berserker Lord is also very important because using him, well, you have your ace or the legends. With that turn, using Connor or skill, you could just get his skill for free, and still get the counter charges from the ace back. So counter charge 4, even if you don't have 4 damage, using Berserk Lord and Kagero is still really good. Um, this is one of the cards that you could take out depend on how the format is shifting. If you see that there are more decks that could call more, then you put a second Berserk Lord and maybe a second Burnout in here, take out 2 of the 10k vanillas. But uh, now how the format is looking right now, I do like the 10k vanillas, because people still rush you, especially if you play against decks like Dimension Police. They could rush you very much. So for the great ones, as you see, I do play only 10 great 2s and 14 great 1s. I know that most of my decks I do still like to play 9 great 3s, 11 great 2s, and 13 great 1s. But in this deck, there are so many great 1 that you want to play, or most of them are really good, so that's why I would have to play 14 of them. Um, so playing 4 of the cheaper Figard, I know that this card is expensive, but this card is really good and you do need it because you do counterblast a lot, and sometimes you don't get your Kagero, or sometimes your Kagero get killed early game. Um, so using 4 copy of him. If you don't have him, then at least play Flame Dragon Perfect Guard. Doesn't really matter which one, just play a Flame Dragon Perfect Guard, because you can search him out. Next great one is playing 4 copies of Kagero. I don't really see a reason why you shouldn't play this card. I mean, this card is by far the best great ones that you could play in this deck. Just getting the counter charge 2 is good by itself, but being able to search while you call him is just amazing. I too love the foil on Kagero. Next great one is you do play 3 of the Stride Fathers. I've seen people play 4, but I can't play 4 because I do want to play 3 of the Monk. Just getting more power and having him on the other on one side and having the Harlem on the other side and getting 2 critical triggers is just devastating for your opponent. But also just the power on your rear guard is really good. Having the Kagero on the field, boosting with him, and then retire him using his skill, and then call Gojo, or yeah, just call the Dragon Monk, not Gojo, just calling the Dragon Monk out there, and getting more power from him is really good. Next, for the trigger lineup, I do play 8 criticals. Doesn't really matter which one you play, at least it should be a Flame Dragon. If you want to play the Titan of the Blade Master critical trigger, you could play him as well. I did test him, I didn't really like him because I would rather keep the guard in my hand. Otherwise you could just discard it with the ace skill or the legend. But yeah, I do like this card a lot, but not in this deck. And also the art on this card is really amazing. But in this deck I'm not playing him, I'm just going for the Flame Dragon critical triggers. But most importantly, this is one great art. I totally love him. How they made this common look so alive is really good. I hope that this would be a reprinted, maybe in a triple rare or a double rare, but I don't think so. But I do hope. We can hope if you want. Playing 4 copies of Gatling Claw Dragon is also amazing. I mean, this draw trigger is one of the best draw triggers in the game. So yeah, that's why I play him. Otherwise, you really don't need to play 6 draw triggers. We have to go into 8 crits or even more, because of the Nahalem and the Dragon Monk. They put so much power on the Regard, and don't if you don't put a critical on them, it's just a waste. Playing 4 Mother Orb is because they are Flame Dragons and because you need your heal triggers to G-Guard. So, G-Guardians, let's start with them. Playing 2 copies of Denial Griffin. Yeah, the SP on this card is also very amazing. And one copy of the orb and one copy of Defeat Flare. Defeat Flare is still good. Remember, guys, you still need to play at least one copy of him. Why? Because Murakumo is a thing. You still play against decks that do need the back row. Playing against the Mensch Police, this card could make a difference. So play at least one copy of him. Mother Orb, on the other hand, you could even play two copies if you want to. I don't play two copies because I also play the Cray Elementals ones. But this card is good because one, it is sometimes a 20k shield, but also it does, if you play him, or at least your opponent know what he does, is they will go all out and put all they will full their rear guards because they don't want you to have that extra shield. So it's better for you because you have more to retire. That's why I do play at least one copy of him. And because Denial Griffin does almost nothing against the Vanguard. He is still 15k shield, but I don't really like to use him against the Vanguard. So for the other G Guardians, I do play one copy of the Emzil and one Screw. Screw is really needed because when you play against decks like Gilderay and you don't really have that defensive power, then you would have to use Screw. And Desmiel is really good against decks that play Commander like the Mesh Police or anything that could hit the rear guard, and if you want to keep the rear guard. The two Cray Elementals should be two of the Ace. If you don't, because I only play two copies of the Ace in this deck. The reason why I do so is because I did need the power to protect myself. So playing only two copies of the Ace and then playing two copies of L'Express is what I'm doing right now. The Express is really needed to finish your opponent off. I don't see any reason why you should not run him. I mean, this card is so good. And playing at least two copies of the Ace is needed. Because this is not your finisher. This could be a finisher, but he's not. In my opinion, he's just another card to put pressure on your opponent. So I'm playing only two copies of the Ace. Then, for your finisher, or another card that put a lot of pressure on your opponent, is Titan. So Blade Master Stride is really good in my opinion. You just use him to. This is a card from GB7. If you don't know what he does, is when he's blazing. So when you have more rear guard as your opponent and you attack with him, he get the blazing skill. Then he also counterblast one and unflip one of your cards in your G zone. Doesn't really matter which one, and then he gets an extra critical. And you could retire as much units from your opponent field as the cards or as the copies of Blade Masters you have face up in your G zone. This card is, in my opinion, very good. I do play 4 copies of him and only 2 copies of the Ace, is because how much this card does make a difference in this deck, especially while playing Desire and Mustafar, because he is still a GB2, so you can't use him as your first stride. You have to go into one of these as the first stride, or sometimes you G-guard and you can already go for him. Playing one Mustafar and one Desire is good in my opinion. The reason why you do so is sometimes you want to pressure your opponent to get at least a perfect guard or a heal trigger out of them. And sometimes you know that you could hit them, so you'll still go for him. But otherwise, I would go for Mustafar if there is something on the field that you want to retire. And playing any copy of these, you still flip one of the Blade Masters face up from your G zone because that's their skill. And from there, your first Blade Master would still be able to retire 2. And if your opponent doesn't have anything that you want to retire, then you could unflip a copy or the second copy of them. So let's say you go first for Mustafar you have already unflipped one of your Blade Masters face up, then let's say your opponent would only have only one unit on the field that you could retire. Then you unflip the Desire face up with the Blade Master skill to still be able to retire something, because you have already one Blade Master face up from Mustafar's skill. So if you didn't really get anything from what I said, it's all about what to unflip first, and then if you see the second unflip could still be your one unit that you don't really need anymore. So because there is so little space in your G zone, you can't play any of these cards. If you have the space, I would definitely play at least one or two copies of Root Flare Dragon. This card is really good, especially when playing against Dimension Police that play Revolver. You could just kill the whole column and just get rid of the Revolver. Otherwise, when he hits, he does the same, but you would definitely not hit. And he's really good while playing in a deck like Blade Master that could retire a lot. Or when you play a cheap deck that doesn't really retire, then he's good to just get more retiring power. Another card that you could play in here, especially if you take out the 10k vanillas, are Burning Horde Dragon, which could get the power done, well, because you play all Overlords. Then you have one Nadim and one Emot. Emot's skill is you can't +1, he's a GB1. And what he does is actually your opponent can't guard with only one Guardian, so they have to discard more cards to stop him. Also, he get an extra 2k, so being boosted by Monk, he still get the jobs done, especially. But usually you don't really want to boost him by anything or just by a normal booster, because it's all about your opponent have to discard more than one card to guard him. On the other hand, also so Perfect Guard not enough for him because it's only one Guardian. On the other hand, Nadim is the card that get power when your Vanguard is blazing, and also give you the counter charge back when he hits. So this is a counter blaster, this is a counter charger. Depends on the Perfect Guards that you play and on your play style and on how the format is shifting. Which one do you want to play? There are a lot of different interesting units that you could play from the GB7, but I don't really like most of them, so that's why I don't play them. There is one great one that I don't really have space to play him. This is the great one that Soul Blasts to go as rest and give the unit in front of him an extra critical. So playing him with the ace is really good. But because I only play 2 copies of the ace, I don't really see a reason why playing him. But otherwise, I would definitely play at least 1 copy of him. So this was the deck profile of Kagero. Oh yeah, for the starter, I still choose for Ondux. He is better in my opinion than getting an extra retire or searching grade 3. Being able to search any grade 3 that you want to, and using the legend skill as well if you couldn't stride before that, is still good in my opinion. Also because you do refresh, put most of your grade 3s back into your deck, you could use his skill. So also he goes into the soul, so it's pretty good. You don't really use the soul as much in this deck, but it's still better than going into the drop zone, I think. Yeah, you could Legion him back using the cross skill, but I would definitely never put him back in the deck. So this was the deck profile of my Overlord deck. Tell me what you think about the deck, and if you want to see a cheaper version of this deck, which is still... remember, I did play this deck against Blazing Paladin, and he was playing just the normal legend with the old Dragonic Overlord, and that deck is still pretty good. He beat me with that deck while I was using an old version of this deck, so I still think that it depends on the player and the skill that you have, and it also depends on the deck that you're playing against. So as I said, if you want to see the cheap version of this deck, you should go and watch our episode on the legends with the cheap ass decks. Otherwise, if you don't agree with some of the cards that I have put in here, you could just put a comment in the comment section below, which said you don't agree with this or that, and then I could explain why I chose for those cards. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and I hope to hear more from you about what you want to see next. So yeah, thanks again, and till next time.